Have you ever wondered how managers choose their clients? Well, if you have, then you'll definitely want to watch the featured conversation that we have coming up. Music manager Pablo Matheson of Civilized Artist Management. We discuss the realities when you need a manager, as well as the importance of having an artist be educated about their career in music, and much, much more. Coming up. Hi, it's Ritch Esra from MUBUTV, where our mission is to educate, empower, and engage artists and music business professionals who are dedicated to a successful career in the music industry. We're coming to you from Muse Expo in Burbank, California, where we managed to catch up with Pablo Matheson, artist manager from Civilized Artist Management. Pablo, thanks so much for joining.
My pleasure. Thank you for having me.
You know, the role of the artist manager today is so different than what it was not 10, 15 years ago. And just the responsibilities and the power shift of dynamic between artist and manager and artist and the world. How do you define the role of an artist manager today?
You know, it's kind of like an all-encompassed business at this point. It always has been. I started in the music industry, well, not in A&R, but my highest achievements were mostly in A&R. And realistically, even when I was doing that, I treated the A&R job almost like a manager, but it was internal. So I worked with the outside manager and we worked as a team. So I kind of always built my managerial experience from that standpoint. I never looked at myself as a label person per se. I was always working to advance the artist the best way I can. So when I started managing outside after working with labels and publishing companies for many years, what I was able to do is take all the experience I've taken from working at a label, at a publishing company, on tours, merchandising, all those things, and apply them all into one thing. The role is a lot more controlled at this moment, and a lot more relies on the manager and the team that he or she has with the artist that he or she works with. So we're basically doing all the work internally to set it up for any advanced success with additional partners as it goes. But we're really DIYing the entire position of all things considered: song choice, production, touring, performance, all that stuff. I mean, a manager really has to take a more very, very inclusive role in all aspects. So I've been doing that for quite a while now, and it's been quite successful for me.
It's interesting listening to you because you've mentioned so many aspects of an artist's career, and it makes me wonder, at what point do you think today, given what you've just said, an artist actually needs a manager to work with them?
You know, here's the thing. I think that one of the things that I see happening currently that I think is very, very awesome, but also very limiting, is that a lot of the artists that are going out there can do it on their own because it is a DIY kind of instinctual thing. The thing is, management is good to have on your team because we have the experience that kind of brings things further. A lot of people who are doing it on the job training, on the job learning, are going to stumble and hit a lot of walls. Now, that's not to say it's a bad thing. The thing is, as we were speaking earlier before we started filming, everything is so happening at the moment now that a stumble can really slow you down or stop your progress. Having a manager involved that actually knows the blueprint of the industry and things to obviously try to avoid can help you as an artist from stumbling and falling behind or missing an opportunity. So I think that it can be done. I just think that there's sometimes a little bit more progress happens when somebody is inside that role who has some sort of experience or at least a blueprint in order to succeed.
You know, then if that's the case, what would you say are the qualities or the specifics that an artist who's looking for a manager, who has that chance to be with managers, qualities should they be looking for in someone to manage?
You know, truthfully, I actually teach a class in this. I teach at a university in Pasadena, at a college in Pasadena, and it works with a lot of artists and, you know, music business for the artist side, for the songwriter side. And, it's really interesting because, I do feel that when you have something going forward, having somebody who's a manager that has the experience will help you move forward and get you there. But when you're starting out, you're not going to have the same stumbles. I'm almost contradicting what I just said. But, I think when you're starting out, the best thing that you can find in a manager is somebody who believes in you. Somebody who, that's what I did as an A&R person when we used to develop talent. You would find somebody and go, there's something here. And if you leave that artist to themselves doing something, they're not going to have anybody to bounce things off of. They're not going to have somebody who has an opinion that might help you shape something you haven't thought of at this point. But a manager really should be somebody who loves you as an artist, who believes in you as an artist, who's willing to put their own career on the line because your success is going to eventually be their success. We've seen it happen on so many cases where managers pop up and you're like, where'd that person come from? Where did that brilliance come from? It really came from understanding the artist and understanding the direction, sharing that vision with that person. So to me, a manager can be your best friend when you're starting out. A manager can be a guy who booked you at a coffee house, who is just like, I see something. It's just somebody who's going to elevate you and do some of the work that leaves you as an artist to continue being an artist, writing songs. They're the ones who will go out and try to get you the shows. They're the ones that'll try to get your tape, or I say tape, my goodness, I'm aging myself. Your link heard, working with your social media so that as an artist, you can continue to write songs, get you in the studio with other people. It's really just somebody who believes in you. And that's truthfully the most success I've ever seen has always been not necessarily from the person who has the most experience, but the most passion for it. In listening to your answer, it makes me think, is there a certain level of development today that an artist needs to have before they can attract management or a label in your mind? I hate to say this because I'm not a numbers person. I'm not a person who looks at social media numbers and all that stuff. When I was doing A&R or looking at talent, we didn't have it. So it wasn't like the situation where you'd be now where people are, before they even listen to your cassette, or God, I keep dating myself. They keep listening to your song. They're looking at your numbers, and if you want to really put it into those terms, imagine if Nirvana was a band today and they had 30 followers and they recorded Bleach or Nevermind or any of these songs, and you got that music to an A&R person. Imagine if they just looked at the numbers and they don't have any following, they don't ever listen to it. You don't know. That's the thing. So for me, the development to me is more about the music that you're putting into it and what you're creating. Obviously, creating a profile nowadays and a following in some sense, whether it's an Instagram profile or, your Spotify or Apple Music plays, is going to help. It's unfortunate that that's it. But you know what? Sometimes, that also creates your audience and builds. So I think that you're not going to really get as far today as you would have 10 years ago without having some sort of numbers supporting what you're doing in your creative process. And, it's a reality. And for me is, looking at myself as an old school type person, it's very sad, but I get it and I don't agree with it. But yeah, I think you do need to have something built up before you even garner any attention from anyone. Yeah, it's sad.
When you look at the market today, especially given on what you said and the kinds of realities that artists and managers face today, can you talk about the non-creative qualities that you're looking for in a client? We all know situations where, and you've had them and you don't have to name names, where you find somebody, they're fantastic, you love the music, but for whatever reason, you don't get involved because they're, and I see you shaking your person.
I just had this conversation.
Talk about what those qualities are that you're going to look for in a client and be aware of.
You know what?
Get somebody on.
To be honest with you, it's the music industry, it's entertainment. There is an it factor that exists. Sometimes somebody is, and again, this is a situation I've run into several times recently. I've been asked to manage people a lot. And it's not that I don't love them as artists or think that they're good. I just don't know if they're, there's a lot of competition. You have to have that it factor. And for me, it's very frustrating because there's a lot of vanilla. You know, I don't want to go see an artist and sit there and go, wow, they were really good. That was nice. You know, the worst compliment for me, if I hear, that was nice, you're done. You know, I mean, everybody's nice, you know. My friend's daughter singing, you know, somewhere is nice. You know, we're in a business where you have to be like, oh my God, that just blew me away. And that's really what happens. It really becomes one of those things. And the funniest thing is I don't really devote my time to a lot of new artists. I very much work with a lot of what you would call legacy acts, you know, kind of doing re-releases and stuff like that. And, you know, they still have a fan base to work off of. So when I'm looking at newer things, it's very hard for me. Because the business has changed so much that for me to basically sit there and look at somebody and say, this is going to be the one. That's how I feel, but that's not what the business is looking at anymore. You know, now you're looking at numbers. You're like, this person has it, but gosh, their social media is terrible. You know, that doesn't deter me from wanting to work with them. Well, I'll work on building their social media, but it does have to have that it factor. There's actually an artist that I found that I was just like, oh my God, this woman has it. She has everything that I want. I'm obsessed with working with her. And she's actually, you know, totally into it, but at the same time is holding back. And I'm like, oh my God, I finally met somebody I want to work with. And she has nothing really going on, but she's holding back, which is funny. Whereas everybody else is hitting me up saying, work with me, work with me. I'm like, you're vanilla. I can't do it. You don't have it. You're nice. You know, so it's just one of those things and, you know, I really do see I hear about, you know, again, teaching at a school, you see a lot of artists and a lot of talent coming through there and you're like, this person not there yet, or doesn't, you know, needs some sort of edge and they don't have it. And you can't teach that. You can't teach that, you know, that's the one thing. So yeah, those are the things that keep me from doing it, especially in such a competitive market today. You know, if somebody's just going to be very plain Jane, you know, it's not going to stand out.
What about work ethic and drive? I mean, are those qualities that because they're absolute things you can determine on their talent?
Oh, man. I've met some artists that are so horrible, but their work ethic is amazing. They're going to be amazing managers and amazing executives. I promise you. But their talent is terrible. I mean, it happens. But the thing is, for me as a manager, I'm going to work really hard. I'm going to work really hard for something I believe in just because I believe in that person. If the artist I choose to work with isn't willing to work as hard as I am, I'm out. And there's a lot of lazy. And I think a lot of this has to do, and I'm not going to generalize millennial kids at this point, or youth or whatever you want to call it, but everything is so in demand to be immediate. And I don't think anything in life can be immediate. And if it is immediate, it's not long-term. This happens with executives, A&R executives. I mean, you know, when I was coming up and I was 20, I'd look at somebody who was 50 and they were just in the middle of their career. Now I see, you know, and I had mentors that I looked up to and I could ask them questions and they were not threatened by me and they were there to help me and elevate me. And the same thing I would see with bands helping other bands. And now it's so competitive in the executive side and in the band side that if you don't have that following immediately, if you don't have that, you know, you're done or you're considered, like, you know, now I look at A&R world and I'm like 25 is the new 50. You know, it's just kind of because there's such a high demand of immediate success. So, you know, I just think that the immediate there's definitely moments where things can extend and become longer trajectories of a career, but realistically it's not. You know, it's like a Facebook post or an Instagram post. You used to be only as good as your last hit. Now you're only as good as your last post. You know, and it's really kind of taken, you know, career into this, from this longevity thing to this short thing. You can look at it from any aspect, from social media platforms, social media stars. It all applies to the same thing. And I think that the quick hit, while some can succeed, you know, it's a smaller it's a smaller success rate, you know, and so I have a really hard time with it at this particular time. You know, that's why I deal with a lot of, you know, again, what I'm calling legacy acts. You know, you can always find their fans. Nowadays, if you like, I can honestly work with a band that sold 40,000 copies, put out a re-release or do something, and I can still make that band more money than they made than when they sold those 40,000, because you can find a fan base. Nowadays, with songs that come out and go away, you forget who an artist was. I was talking about this in one of my classes. There was a great song some years ago by an artist that was on Warner Brothers named Ayaz. The song was called Replay. I think it was 10 years ago. Great song. Never had another song. I'm in my class talking about that song. People like don't even remember it. And it was only 10 years ago. You know, it's sad. You know, it's like you can't go out and tour 10 years later on a song that nobody remembers, you know?
So, no, exactly.
Yeah.
You know, given what you said, how important do you feel it is today for artists who want a career in music to be educated about the business they're going into?
Again, that's one of those great things. I mean, I think that, you know, it's a lot more internal learning. You know, I always tell people, look to the past to understand your future, because if you want to have a long-term career, look at artists that did it before. Now, it's not as easy anymore, but, you know, there's something to be said about the blueprint. You know, in this music program that I teach, it's mostly about just, you know, none of these artists are going to remember what I taught, but it might be something that I'm giving them as a, you know, subliminal blueprint to work with. So when they are in the situation, they know what their publishing means. They understand collections, especially now with streaming. You know, just being part of a PRO isn't enough. You know, there's a whole publishing collections that you need to be aware of. Otherwise, you're not getting paid for it. There's all these things, but, you know, you have to be really more proactive as an artist these days, or as a manager, and learning these things. So it is important, because there's a lot of money and a lot of opportunities that slip through the cracks just because you don't know. And these aren't things that are taught, you know, and there was a time when I was in the music industry where you could learn these things. You know, when I was doing A&R, I started a label, and then I was like, you know what, I need to learn publishing. I went and took a publishing job so I could learn that, just because I was like, I got to know more, especially now as a manager. I've done publishing, I've done touring, I've done merchandising, I've done A&R, I've done marketing, I've done social media. So I kind of I'm always trying to learn more. And I think that's a drive that people that are coming up need to do, is they need to study as much as they can. Just read a book, you know, look at articles. Articles can be so eye-opening. You know, something like this is extremely eye-opening, because even if I say something in this interview that we're doing right now and somebody goes, what was he talking about? They'll hopefully look into it. You know, the internet is a wonderful thing to go search. You know, there's great books about publishing by Randall Wixson, wrote an amazing, it's like a Bible to me. I still carry it in my bag daily, because even though I did publishing for 10 years, I still need to reference. It's always changing. You know, of course, there's the Don Passman book and all that, but you know, those are blueprints. You know, I think there's more to it. You know, digital news, you know, I think is one of the sites. I can't remember what in digital music news, I can't remember what it's called. I mean, these are all great sources that actually, you know, they're out there that if you look into them, you can learn. You know, it's hard to find, but they're there. You know, there's people that are actually doing that. I think there are some courses that teach. I think those are always good. Annex courses that they do at UCLA in Los Angeles. I mean, they're all places where you can learn more. I think coming to these types of music expo things are very eye-opening. You can hear stories. When I teach, I talk a lot about things that were successful and failures for me, because I learned from my failures. I learned from mistakes I made. I still learn from mistakes I made. And I think that's an extremely valuable thing. And I hope that when I pass that information on to new people, that's something that they'll hit in their brain somewhere along the line, where if they're presented with a deal and they look at the deal and they read it, they go, oh, this is what he was talking about. I got to, okay, you know, hold off for a second. So, you know, you hope those things work out.
What are the most common mistakes you see in your career artists make, especially early in their careers?
Publishing. Biggest mistake that everybody makes. Not registering your song. These little things that take no time, but nobody knows what they're doing. They don't there's no blueprint given that says this is what you need to do. Registering your songs with a PRO, making contacts, understanding what a song split is, understanding what percentages are, knowing how to upload your music. Now we have it quite easy through all these different sources of DistroKid, and you have TuneCore, and you have all these wonderful outlets. They all exist there. The thing is, I think that it's publishing is a big one that people make mistakes. And I also think there's a lot where people are scared to ask, or they don't do the research, or they don't. And, that's the thing is, for me, is like, I'm what you would consider a veteran in this. I still ask questions. If I don't know, I have to ask, because I don't want to look dumb. I've had so many people, younger, that I've mentored per se, that, they would call me, I'm going into this meeting. What should I ask? I'm like, okay, well, look out for this. And if this is asked, answer this. Because for me, it's a business that's very competitive and that's very threatened by especially very smart, younger people coming up, but they don't have the experience yet. So what I always try to do with the people I was mentoring was give them the answers so they wouldn't be taken advantage of. And, and that's because they were smart enough to ask. And I think so I think publishing is something that people get lost in. I think asking questions is something that people do. Hire a lawyer to look at something for an hour. Don't pay them a crazy amount of money. Just do the hourly rate. Let them, they know what they're doing. They're looking at it. Reading a contract and thinking what you're reading is not going to happen. I've read so many contracts. I've worked on so many contracts. And I still read them, and I'm like, ooh, that word could mean forever, or that and you're screwed. I recently went through it with a publishing situation where there was a reversion, and I was like, oh, you guys got the reversion, so that means you're going to get your publishing back, and you can, administer it yourself. And then I read the contract again. I was like, oh my God, that one word means that they don't get there is a reversion, but they're not getting it back until this is paid. And it's just little things that you don't know. And I think that it's very important to ask questions.
Okay.
I try.
Do you feel as an artist manager that the artist development process varies from genre to genre?
Absolutely. Everything is, here's the thing. An artist is like a snowflake. They all look the same coming down, but if you look up, nothing's the same. One of the things that happened a lot when I was at a label, and I got in a lot of trouble. I had, not a bad reputation, but I was troublesome in some ways, because what would happen is, and understandably so, a label is a lot like a conveyor belt. You get an A&R person signs an artist, and they would hand the artist, and the artist would fall into a genre, and they would apply marketing plan A, B, C, or D to that person. And the thing was, especially in the 90s when alternative music was coming out, there was always let's follow what the Smashing Pumpkins did, or let's follow what Jane's Addiction did, or what, there would always be these cases. And for me, when I was working with an artist, I'd be like, but these guys aren't that. How about if we take some of that, some of this, and some of that? It'd be like, no, you don't understand. You get marketing plan A, B, or C. And I was like, how about we make D? And we would, and there would be a little bit of a problem, but we would do it, and working with an amazing marketing team who were also like, that could be awesome. And I was so fortunate where I worked with so many great people that were open to new suggestions and ideas. Their bosses weren't as much, but they were. And then all of a sudden, marketing plan D would be developed, and then a band that sounded like a band that I worked with would get signed. They go, well, let's give marketing plan D. It was like always those types of things. So every artist needs to be dealt with on an artist development way in a different. Some people tour, some people are radio, some people are playlists, some, you don't know. You have to look at the particular situation. Is it going to be easier to break this artist as a cover, doing cover? You don't know. Everything that you think is right could change all at one point, because you sit there and go, it's not going to work. But it's about taking chances, and it's about, sometimes you have to be really out of the box. Do plan D. Plan D might be the way that it breaks that nobody was thinking about. Again, when you come back to like when you're asking me about, what makes an artist special, a marketing plan or a plan to roll out also makes that person special, because they're not doing what everybody else did. And, I think it's extremely important from the artist manager side to come up with that and, try to make yourself different. I honestly, even when I consult for artists, I go, well, you fit into this category, but so do 10,000 other artists, especially now with, you being able to upload your music and compete. Now you're not competing against 8 artists, you're competing against everybody. So, great, we're going to fall into this category. So everybody's trying to get into that lane. It's a very congested 405 right now on a Friday night. So let's find some outside lanes to work with to get to the same place.
Pablo, for career artists who are really serious about having a career in music for themselves, what would be the most salient pieces of advice you would have for somebody starting their career out?
For me, it would be honestly being able to do more than one thing. As a manager or as an A&R person, obviously I'm always looking for the talent, but the talent lies in many places. If you find an artist that's a singer who also writes songs, that's fantastic because that's their artist career. But also if they write songs, they can also write for other people. If they're also a singer, they can also sing for other people. We live in a place where, in a musical environment now where, you see people performing on EDM songs, and they get recognized for their vocal, or they write songs for other people that become hits for other people that only are going to help them expand their horizons as an artist. An artist is obviously a performer, but an artist is also a writer. An artist is also a singer. They can be all those things. I look at examples like Kesha, to me, is one of my favorite examples. Somebody who started out singing demos in a studio and then sang, top lines for people and then started writing and then became her own artist. And, she, when you're going down the specific road, like I mentioned before, and you're going down the middle, one lane, it's a very congested one lane. So you're kind of like, not moving. You're kind of sitting there competing against all these other people. Now, of course, there's competitiveness on all sides, whether you're a singer, whether you're a songwriter as well. But if you're that person who's expanding their opportunities, you're recognized for more than just one thing. You're recognized now as an artist. You're also recognized as a songwriter. You're also known as a singer. And on top of that, what happens is wherever you end up going, you're now on the songwriter side, you're dealing with publishing. On this side, you're dealing with A&R people when you're a singer. You're doing all these things and you're creating your network and you're creating your net worth from that. And you're really building up on as who you are. And I think it's such a great thing to expand. And also, you also expand your experiences professionally because you're dealing with publishers, because you're dealing with producers and songwriters. Your network is building and you're starting to understand more about what's going on. So if you become a singer and you have a good career, you've now built up enough to be able to parlay that into something further down the line. I mean, I know a lot of artists that became managers, that became A&R people, that expanded their career from what they learned. My friends over at Crush Management are perfect examples. When they started that, they were all former musicians that started a management company because of the experiences that they had as artists. Almost, again, learning from what not to do or learning from mistakes as well as the successes. So I think if you're going to be somebody who looks into that world, it's about expanding your opportunities and not just pinpointing into one particular thing. Because again, you're always going to be known for your last hit. And if you're just doing that one thing, that's a very, very small box to be a part of. Whereas if you expand, you can have a hit as a singer, you can have a hit as a songwriter. I mean, some of these great songwriters were artists that never really made it through that particular path. There's so many. I mean, the guy who was in Semi-Precious Weapons, they were very successful. Not successful then, they did okay. But then he became the songwriter that just writes he's a hit maker. You look at Edna Swap, Ann Previn and Scott Cutler, who started Pulse because of Horn, which was a song that they put out that was not big, but then was covered by Natalie Imbruglia and became a huge hit, which built their empire. I mean, this is such a wonderful story to me because not only were they artists, but they were known as songwriters, and now they're entrepreneurs, successful. I mean, these are great stories, and I think that there's going to be so many more because there's so many people that are just coming up, and they're really smart, and I think the ones that are going to win are the ones that find their mentors, and that's the role I really love doing in my post-label world,
Some really valuable pieces of information and insights from Pablo. So, insiders, here's the question of the day. What are the most important factors in what Pablo spoke about in this video regarding artist management? Was it the reality of when you really need a manager? Or was it how important becoming educated about your chosen career path really is? Or did something else grab your attention? If you have any ideas or experiences that you'd like to share regarding this video, we'd love to hear from you and connect in the comments below. Thanks as always for watching this video. Make sure to subscribe to MUBUTV for more information on how to educate, empower, and engage your music career. In addition, we recently put together a free guide on the most important factors to look for when seeking out a manager for your music career. This is one of the most critical choices you will make in building your team. So if you're interested in receiving it, we've included a link to that in the description below. It's totally free, and it goes through the top do's and don'ts before you even think about reaching out to a manager, such as, where am I at in my music career? How much of an audience have I built on my own? Does the manager understand the music business of today and how it functions? Do they have established relationships within the industry? And if not, are they committed to building the necessary relationships needed for your career? This guide will provide you with some of the most crucial questions, other factors you need to be aware of and be asking yourself when making a decision regarding this important aspect of building your team. So if you're interested in receiving that, we'll link to it in the description below. You can also check out a summary of this episode and everything we talked about in the YouTube description as well. And if you enjoyed this video, we'd really love it if you would hit the like button and let us know what other kinds of videos and types of content you want to see on our channel. Hit us up in the comments below, and we'll see you in the next video.